Greetings, foolish mortals, and welcome to the Wizard's Tower. I am the VO Wizard, and today we're talking like none other than Matthew McConaughey. Just get straight to it. Kapow! A lot of you guys really seem to enjoy that Robert Downey Jr. video, and I've been hearing a lot of people asking for McConaughey next, so what do you say we make a series out of this? First thing you want to do with McConaughey is the first thing you want to do with every voice. The first thing you wanted to do with Robert Downey Jr. Get him in your head. Start getting a lot of examples down. Start playing with Snapchat filters, putting his face on your face, getting into character. Start getting some pictures up. Get his face in your mind. Start watching a lot of YouTube interviews. Get his mannerisms down. Watch how he moves. Watch what faces he makes. Get his mannerisms and his vibe. Yeah, Matthew McConaughey's got about two modes you're working with. One is his cool, easygoing, laid back here self where everything's cool, everything's alright, his alright. That's back here. That's cool, Matthew McConaughey. Matthew McConaughey mode 2 is very masculine. He's jockey, he's confident.
Envy the country that has heroes!
You don't want to necessarily mistake these two as it's jockey Matthew McConaughey or it's easy Matthew McConaughey. He does both, and so can you. You'll see this more and more as you're watching those interviews I told you about. He's laid back, he's back here, he's cool, he's regarding, but he's also extra jockey. He's very confident as he does it.
We all need that feeling every so often. How have you been?
I've been pretty McConaughey, man.
This leads me into something I want to try to introduce with these voices called the latch phrase. I like getting something that I can wrap my tongue around first while I do the voice, something that gets me into the voice. Like some people have said for Kennedy, it's chowda. You really want to get some kind of phrase in there that makes you think of them immediately and leads you into the voice. For Matthew McConaughey, and do not ask me why, it's listen here. I don't know why. I haven't heard him say that a whole lot, but that's what puts me right into Matthew McConaughey organically. Listen here. Listen here. Listen here. You got a lot of explaining to do, and I'm going to put you in Hurt Town if you don't start talking, Buster. That listen here, for me, is a good little guide right into the voice organically. Leads me straight into a sentence. You don't have to say it out loud. This is an old voiceover trick. Even if you say something mentally to get you right into that mental mode, say it in your brain, and then continue the sentence first. But if that gets you there, say that latch phrase. The next thing you want to work on after the character building, and then as soon as you get that latch phrase working for you, is pacing. Pacing is a very, very important, but very underrated part of doing voices. Without pacing, you're going to try to walk around like a cool Matthew McConaughey and start thinking like, hey man, you got any weed? It'd be a lot cooler if you did, alright? Okay, cool. It's not going to sound anything like him. Or you run the risk of going too slow. Too slow with the McConaughey is just as bad as too fast. Hey man, alright? Cool. I guess I'll see you around next Tuesday. It just doesn't work. Really get that cadence and pattern going, but first do it without the voice, without trying to sound like him. Do it his pattern, your voice. I've got a lot of babies all over this town, and absolutely none of them have my last name. I got a lot of babies all over this town, and absolutely none of them have my last name. You see the difference? Out of his voice, and in his pacing, your tone. Just get the mannerisms down. Move like him, talk like him in those kinds of ways. Get his pattern down, like that. His pattern down. His pattern down. It's a relaxed feel. There are a lot of pauses. Make note of when he tends to pause. Make note of when he tends to extend his sounds. In the famous alright, alright, alright.
Alright, alright, alright.
Even those are not the same alright. Even if you have to look weird doing it, do it in the mirror, do it in your room alone, but get that kind of swerving around, walking like Matthew McConaughey, talking like yourself, talking like Matthew McConaughey, getting that very easy spirit going about you. Still your own voice, laying back, being easy. Just start saying whatever you think. Start saying song lyrics. Start saying something you know, like, hello darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again. Because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping. You'll sort of hear it as you go along too. It'll make you want to do the voice. It'll push you into it. And the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. The more I do that, the more Matthew McConaughey sounds like a slam poet. When you have that nice, easy cadence going on, all the extensions, all of the pauses. Start thinking about tone. Start thinking about where he sits in the vocal range. He's about a baritone, and he doesn't extend up into the higher range nearly ever. I don't know if I've ever heard him do it. Matthew McConaughey is always right down about here. Down in the baritone range. Sorry, ladies. It doesn't come up here. Matthew McConaughey's never up here. This is no Matthew McConaughey. He never has that falsetto. That sounds like something entirely different. That sounds like, I don't know, Boss Hogg? Always down here. Low and slow like a Texas barbecue. Smooth baritone like that silky peanut butter like molasses. Slow and steady like that. Never too rushed. Never too high. It's not as dynamic as Robert Downey Jr. It's not as dynamic as a lot of other voices, but it is that sultry, silky, smooth lower end. The single most important sound for Matthew McConaughey is the similar sound for Robert Downey Jr.
I read the character, I was like, I've got to play this guy. I don't think anybody else can do this.
I will tell you what I told you back then. It is not a shh. It's a shh, like a whistle right through these bottom teeth. If you can't get there, learn how to get there. Without that, you won't be sounding like McConaughey. It's really almost more, I think I said like an SZH, but not shh. Matthew McConaughey doesn't go shh. Listen here, you got a lot of explaining to do. I'm gonna see you after school.
Like we said in the last video, that's more Sean Connery.
What you want is that nice right there in those teeth. Little whistle, like your grandpa does.
Like Robert Downey Jr. does. Same little whistle, if you can hear the whistle. But if it's not whistling like that, like a tea kettle,
you're not there. Get that tea kettle, that sharp little and like I told you before, practice that. Do play with your lips. It's not a whistle through the teeth. Do whatever you need to do with your lips, with your teeth, with your tongue to make that sound. Once you get it, it's hard to stop doing. You'll start talking like the rest of the day. It'll start coming out in your speech, so careful with that one too. Be sure with Matthew McConaughey, it's not so much a sound, but that pattern from before. Drawl out your words. Not all of them. Get his cadence as you're watching him. Draw all those out. He'll do it. Every couple of words. Every little while. While. He'll start doing different sounds, like that pause right there. Start doing different stuff he's thinking about. Start drawing out different words. And you'll get there. That'll come organically as you watch him more.
It's got a volcano in the middle of it. It's got a lot of sugar cane. They make great rum.
They do.
In Mauritius, sir.
Another important sound he makes is the T. T right at the end. It's a staccato. It's like a pop. It's a punch right at the end of the sentences. Not every sentence. Don't overdo it. I'm going to put like a disclaimer down. Don't overdo it. Whatever I'm teaching you, never overdo it. Feel free to stop and enunciate certain sounds in words, and then you can follow them with a little breath afterwards.
There's no middle ground.
I told you before, I don't sell no pot.
Just put it in the glove box, buddy. I don't know what it is. Is it a ferret?
I've seen a rhino charge a man. I've seen birds in flight. That T and that D, those sounds, that drawl right beforehand, and then the boom, like a up, float, land, right on that sound. Make sure you get those little things like the T, like the D. Watch him and his little quirks, and then mimic those. Make note of those, mimic them.
Fairy dust. It doesn't exist. It's never landed. It is no matter. It's not on the elemental chart.
If it helps you get his tone, speak from right here in the back of the throat. Robert Downey Jr. was up here, pushing through the front of the face. Matthew McConaughey's way back here. He's talking out the back of his throat, very resonant. Don't be afraid. If it helps, jet out that little jaw. I find that helps a lot of times with me when I'm talking like Matthew McConaughey. Get that jaw straight out the front. Push it down. While you're doing that, don't let your tongue wander. Keep that tongue still. Tongue stays right where it is. Jaw goes forward. Last thing to think about for McConaughey is physicality. Like I said, he's back here, like in his throat. He's back. Always kind of back, laid back. How's it going? Don't be afraid to use a lot of hands with Matthew McConaughey. I use a lot of hands and I kind of move around when I'm being McConaughey. Sway a little bit, but I use hands when I'm talking.
I'm going to the premiere tonight, and I got to see if there's a new edit or a new cut of this film that I haven't seen. You know what I mean?
Make note of that right there. Sometimes the finger point or hold up a hand. Sometimes it's sincerity, it's authority, but it's also confidence. You can also get intense conviction out of that hand when you're talking to somebody. Look, I mean what I say. I mean every word. You'll see it the more you watch him, the more you see him in movies and his interviews. He'll see his hand motions, you'll see how he talks. And it's not all the time either. Don't overdo it. The last thing you want to think about, other than the hands with the physicality, eye contact. Intense eye contact. There's a scene in Reign of Fire when he's with Christian Bale. He has an entire monologue, it seems like 2 minutes, where he does not blink.
It was in the wheat fields just south of Coffeyville, Kansas. It was late November.
Matthew McConaughey is one of the kings of eye contact. And if you get that eye contact down, get into character, and then start with that eye contact, lead with it, and don't let up, you'll master the physicality. And all those things working together, you kind of get those sounds, the little S, you get that whistle like with Robert Downey Jr. You start getting the T, you start enunciating, you start getting really good. Not all the time, it's a slow molasses, and then sometimes you stop.
What do? You get another brilliant idea. A special idea. Another situation. Another stock.
Move that around with the hands, start getting that eye contact down like Matthew McConaughey does. Put him right there in the throat, get that jaw forward. Listen to the cadence, get your tone down, pacing, tonality, physicality. You get yourself a passable McConaughey. Thanks for playing along all the way to the end. If you enjoyed your time here today, scroll on down to the comments section and let me know how your Matthew McConaughey is coming along, and who we should do next. Be sure to subscribe to the tower to help keep these candles on up here, and then clang that bell so you know when more stuff comes out. And listen here, if you want to see some cheap tricks, you can go watch anybody. But if you want to know some real magic, come watch The Wizard. Alright? Alright.